Hi, and welcome to Stories of Hope. I'm Christine Hotchkiss, your host. And a little bit about Stories of Hope. Where did it come from? Well, a personal journey of my own being a bereaved mother. New Year's Day, 2007, my family and I were in an auto accident, and my daughter passed away. So that gave me, as anybody would go through any tragedy or anything that we're not used to in our lives, would make a change in your life. So that gave me an idea of what I've been living, and I want to be able to share with other people how they can get through a tragedy, have hope. So here, Stories of Hope, we talk about inspiration, celebration, transformation, celebration of life, forgiveness, and hope. So today, my guest and I actually have something in common, and that is the loss of a child. And that is a very heavy topic conversation. Whether it's a child or a loss of a loved one, it's still a heavy thing. But this one is very impactful, and we're going to call it A Mother's Grief Improves Traffic Awareness. And today I have Barbara Hoffman from Red means stop, and that's here locally in Chandler, Arizona. So welcome.
Oh, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I actually was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Moved to Oklahoma for school. Then I moved to Arizona in 1991, and I've lived here ever since. I worked at Arizona State University for almost 23 years, and then I retired from that, and I went into working in a nonprofit.
Imagine that.
Yes.
Now, when you said you started working for a nonprofit, was this prior to your son's passing, or was this a turning point where you wanted to work for a nonprofit?
Well, in 2004, my daughter was first in a car crash. This is Jennifer, and she was in a rollover crash where she was ejected in the desert of Mexico.
Oh.
And she survived. She had broken her back and her legs and her pelvis and ribs, and she had bleeding in her brain. So that was a really traumatic experience.
May I see it? Thank you.
3 days after she got home from the hospital, my son Michael came by to visit, and they watched a movie together. He was living at his dad's house, and he left to go back to his dad because his dad just bought him a new puppy. It's not the one pictured, but it looked sort of like that. It was a beagle. And on his way back to his dad's house, someone ran a red light and hit and killed Michael on the intersection. He was on the crosswalk. He was wearing a helmet because he was riding a scooter, but he still didn't make it. So I had to go back home and tell his sister that his brother had died, which was really awkward because she was I couldn't hug her because everything was hurting on her, and we were like total shocked. I mean, her incident is enough for a parent to be traumatized.
Agreed.
And then having him die was almost unbelievable because, I mean, she was ejected in the desert of Mexico at 80 miles an hour and survived, and then Michael gets hit in Mesa.
Something local at home, just a little ways away.
He never even made it to the hospital. So it was.
How old is your son?
My son was 14,
Oh.
and he was just really excited about everything. 9th grade just started, and he got a job in the cafeteria at school, and he was earning a little bit of money, and he had lots of friends and just enjoyed
being a teenager.
He loved tinkering with anything mechanical.
Okay.
He would work on people's bicycles and scooters and change tires for people and brakes. He knew how to do that. I don't know where he learned it.
Yeah,
but he was very good at that type of stuff. But when he got killed, the man that killed him, I found out shortly afterwards that all he got was a ticket for running the red light. And he didn't get punished for killing Michael. And I thought, well, that's wrong. And I started investigating laws about children in crosswalks. And I called the police, and they wouldn't charge him with anything further. I mean, they gave him that ticket. And that's when I came across the Red Means Stop Traffic Safety Alliance, and I gave them a call, and I told him what happened. And he said so many families call there, and not too many families feel that any justice was served. The people that actually use their car as a weapon and kill people, they don't get punished. And it's a hard thing, I'm sure, for police and the judges, because most people aren't going out that day to kill somebody. It's not premeditated, but they're careless, they're distracted or whatever. The man that killed Michael was in his 80s and maybe should have given up his license. So there was a lot of things that angered me, and
we know that's part of the grievance process too.
Yeah, anger was
anger
a big
is the biggest one, the very first one.
Yeah, and I stayed in anger mode for quite a few years. But using my anger the Red Means Stop Traffic Safety Alliance allowed me to be a volunteer for a while. Then I sat on the board as a board member, and then I became a board officer. And 6 years ago, our executive director wanted to retire. He was in his 70s, and he's like, I really want some time, to just do whatever.
Right.
He had been involved since 1999 when his daughter died. Oh. So that was a long time to be working, and I took over the executive director and had to learn how to run a nonprofit. So it was difficult, but I'm learning more every day, and I feel like I've actually been able to write grants and get them funded and different things, and I've put on different events and
all the intricacies of having a nonprofit. I have one myself, and it's a constant growing process, as well as I work for one here in Chandler. And there's a reason why these were founded is based on someone's change of life, because they want to make a difference. But there's a lot involved in it too. And we do rely on grants, and we do rely on the community for support, whether it's financial, volunteering, understanding, having board members that will stick through it and be there, or committees. If you have committees that are part of it, I'm going through some growth on my own. But back to your son, so you had a really difficult time, a short, distant time. So I could see why you were angry on two different levels. So you're with Red Means Stop. What exactly is that program?
Well, Red Means Stop is a nonprofit organization that tries to raise awareness to the dangers of red light running. We changed the name from Coalition to Traffic Safety Alliance mainly because we wanted to incorporate other traffic safety issues. So we don't always just look at the intersection, but most of the time, a lot of the traffic safety issues like drunk driving and speeding and aggressive driving and distracted driving can cause red light running. So there's a lot of different issues out there. And we talk a little bit about wrong way drivers, but our focus is mostly on intersections, and that's really the most dangerous place in the city to be driving is through an intersection.
That you think is safe when the light says it's red, you think it's safe, and actually I find myself not finding that the safest.
I know, it's scary these days.
And I have a friend of mine who lost her daughter on a wrong way driver. So when you mention that, I mean, there's all different things when it comes to traffic and distractions, and like you said, then you've got emotions involved of driving distracted with maybe a bad day or a breakup or a death of a loved one, and you're just not with the rest of the world. Or now you've also given the whole age thing, and some people that would be 70 or 80 would say, I'm okay to drive, but then where do you step in without taking someone's rights away to say we can't do this? So how does Red Means Stop bring an awareness? And let me back up real quick. Are you located in Chandler? What city are you located in?
Well, our headquarters is in Scottsdale, but we work throughout the state, mostly in the Phoenix metropolitan area. We do events even up in Prescott and over in Tucson, but we spend most of our time here in the Valley. So we're not just in Chandler, but I happen to join the Chandler Chamber, and it's been a really good support system. Meet a lot of people, go to a lot of events, and I've gotten board members from people I met through there, and I've gotten funding, and I've gotten different ideas on ways to change things. And the city listens to me, and I think that's great.
We here in Chandler is a great city, I have to admit.
Yes.
So what is the mission?
Well, our main mission is to save lives and then to honor those that have been killed before us. Honor the lives of the people lost. So I think it's important. If we can find any way to save a life and not put another family through this, then we feel like we've accomplished a big ordeal. I mean, that's major mission to save lives.
So how do you make that happen?
Well, most of the time, I tell my story about my kids, and a lot of times that wakes people up, just hearing this could happen, especially if they think they can go through the red light really quick or something. They might change their mind and think, wow, I could kill somebody's child, and that might change how they drive. We've been working with sixth graders and putting together a comic book series. So we have them write the stories, and last 2 comic books, we are having them do the artwork, which has been fun.
I've seen a couple you shared with me, And
so that's really made a difference. The teacher who's been teaching for over 25 years said that those kids that got involved with the comic book actually changed their behavior in a bus on a field trip. They actually looked at the drivers outside the bus.
Critiquing them, whether they're supposed to be
they're
doing.
like, oh my gosh, that guy's on his cell phone. And so the kids are noticing how people are driving. And these are, 12, 13-year-old type age. They're not driving yet, but I think it's good to start them young.
Mm-hmm.
We taught them to look up bicycle laws. We taught them to look up different, how which side of the road you should walk on, and not to be distracted while walking either.
Yeah.
And we talked about identification. A lot of kids, if they don't have a driver's license, and they may have their cell phone, but they don't have any ID, if they get knocked out, the police will come and they'll look at a locked phone and not know who these children are. Mm-hmm. So we had them put on an app on their phone that gives the emergency number on the lock screen.
I think it's called ICE, or is that something different?
Well, ICE will do that too. This is road ID. ICE, the police have to try to shut off your phone and go to a different spot to find it.
Okay.
But this gives the ICE number right on the lock screen.
Oh, wow.
So it doesn't take any trouble for the policeman to find it.
Because time is of the essence?
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Especially. Well, I know if you have a child, like Michael happened to be in the intersection, my next door neighbor saw him get hit.
Oh, no.
So she came and got me right away. Now, his last name is different than mine.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, because I was divorced.
Okay.
And so if the police were looking up his name, they might not find me very quickly. And if he was needing x-rays, if he needed any kind of surgery, they would want a parent to sign off on it. It might take a lot of time. They'd have to get a court order and the judge would have to sign. In the meantime, he's needing surgery.
At that moment.
Right. And so it's important that we give children identification somehow, that police can figure out who they are if they're unconscious.
Yeah, because we see people with medical bracelets and even tags on their around their neck. Mostly the seniors, they have the ones around the neck. But I saw this young lady the other day. She couldn't have been any more than 4 years old. She had an ID bracelet. It was kind of cute. And I said, oh, what's your bracelet? And I realized I'd seen that symbol. And, oh, it's my medical bracelet. And she didn't think nothing of it. It's just another piece of jewelry.
A little 4-year-old, huh?
She was about 4 or 5 years old.
That's
so
pretty neat.
that is... now you mentioned 6th grade. So do you go to the schools around here and you're specific to an age, a grade? How do you get into the schools?
No, actually, my friend's a teacher and she got me into that particular school. We've gone back to do like parades during Halloween, and we get involved with the whole school. The principal knows who Red Mean Stop is and they support it. We march in parades with the kids. We get involved with the school, not just 6th grade, but the teacher teaches 6th grade, so she makes sure that our story is part of her curriculum every year.
I like that.
She's actually tried to get safety curriculum into the school district. They have health, but they don't really have a safety curriculum. Kids are not really taught how to ride their bikes, not by the schools. Now, this should be a parent's responsibility, but we found a lot of kids riding their bike on the wrong side, going to school, and maybe their parents don't realize they're doing it, but sometimes the kids maybe aren't taught either.
Awareness, again, makes a difference. And you're talking about the curriculum in school. When I was in school, we had home economics, we had auto, we had, I would say, the necessities to survive as an adult now. And
driver's ed.
Driver's ed for sure was one of those things. I really hassled my teacher. He's like, "You're gonna learn to drive a stick shift." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm never gonna drive one." I can't tell him now I drive a stick shift.
Oh, that's good. Well, actually, tomorrow I'm speaking in a high school in Mesa.
Okay.
So Mesa still has driver's ed, but not...
They do. I thought it was like a program outside the school. You actually had to pay for it, and it's not something that, is an
They
elective.
might have to pay a fee of some sort, but it is during school day that they have their driver's ed. Because I'll be there from 7:30 till 11-something. I would have continued with another school in Mesa in the afternoon, but they have some kind of testing going on. But a lot of days I'm there from morning to the afternoon.
Wow.
Back-to-back classes.
So where we really need to make an awareness, well, I shouldn't say really, but the beginning of time where kids are getting their permits.
Yeah, we really like to give tell the story why I got into traffic safety. I tell them other stories about different incidents, and then I show them pictures of car crashes, but not the gory one. Well, sometimes gory ones, but not usually. But I mean, why is a car upside down? Mm-hmm. Why is a car upside down on a city street when the speed limit's 35 or 40? How can a car flip upside down? And so I have them answer that question. Some of them say, well, they probably were speeding or overcorrecting, and they understand this can happen, but it is kind of a shock to see a car.
I've seen that. And you wonder, how the heck did that happen? Yeah.
So it's good for them to get involved, and I teach them things about distraction, and I do a little performance, I would say. I have them shut their eyes, and then I count to 5, and while I'm counting, I walk across the room to the other side in 5 seconds, and I tell them open their eyes and say, like, if I was the road, you'd be in a ditch. If you take your eyes off the road for 5 seconds, and I'm only walking, if you're driving really fast, you could drive across a whole football field at 55 miles an hour in that period of time, 5 seconds. Seems like a short period of time, but it's really not if you're going fast.
You talk about 5, absolutely, and you talk about 5 seconds, and we talk about distractions. It's not just the emotions that people are going through a day, whether it's happy, sad. You got the cell phones, you've got people eating, you've got kids in the car, you've got all kinds of things. And so one thing that we here in Chandler have been exposed to for several months, I think maybe almost a year, but I can't be for certain, is the cars that drive themselves.
Yes, those are nice.
How do you feel about that, with knowing that red means stop? Because that's a whole different thing now, and I'm not quite sure if that's even a question to ask you.
Well, actually, I'm very much for the self-driving technology. I think it's going to be a much safer route in the future. They've realized that they've done studies, and statistics show that over 90% of car crashes are human error.
Okay.
It's something that the driver does wrong that can be prevented. But it seems like people aren't wanting to change too much. They're still texting and driving. Even though we have a state law now, they don't. I saw somebody on their phone today holding their phone. We have a hands-free law. I know they're not ticketing people. This is a warning period, but it's still a law, and it's still illegal to talk on your phone or even to text or to do anything with your phone in your hand. And I think the self-driving cars will take care of a lot of deaths. I mean, it'll eliminate a lot of deaths on the road because they're going to stop at red. They're not going to be distracted by eating food or putting their makeup on. There's going to be all they're focused on is the road, the signals, and they've been driving around a lot in the Chandler area. They're not mapped out to go everywhere in Phoenix yet, and I can't wait till they do. I think it'll be great.
We'll see how those roads around the area will work out for the drivers around there, because I'm used to being around here, and when I go to the other outskirts cities, I'm like, where are those cars? I'm used to seeing them everywhere, and you still have those drivers that are going to do what they want to do. And you'd mentioned about seeing someone on a cell phone. I'm guilty. I was of that because I have a car that's older, and I choose that doesn't have all the electronic guru stuff to where you have the automatic, your phone connects to it. So I've now gotten the devices to, the earbuds. But it's the nature of the beast being human that we will do what we can until we get caught. That's not right or wrong, but that's the reality of people, too.
It happens, yeah.
It does happen.
It's unfortunate that people are willing to take that risk.
I agree with you.
I mean, when it comes to texting and driving, I actually know the man who was on his phone texting and drifted over into the side of the freeway and hit a police officer.
Yes, that was in the West Valley, I believe. Or was
no,
that one
it
here
was
too?
on 101. It was on the 101.
Then it's happened a few times. Yeah.
Yes, the other one in the West Valley. But yeah, it's really unfortunate because, I mean, he's just like we are. I mean, we could make that mistake. Absolutely. We could kill somebody, and we don't want to take that chance. I mean, after that happened, my friends that I'm involved with in traffic safety, we sit there and say, it could have been us doing that. Easily take your eyes off the road just to answer a text, and then you could swerve over and kill somebody, and it would be, so it's not easy on that end of being on that end either, I'm sure. The man that killed Michael, being elderly, he ended up falling and breaking his hip short time after he killed Michael, and he passed away shortly after that. And so he didn't live with that guilt for too long, but it may have affected his life to make him weaker and, made him fall, or, you know what I mean? It's hard to say.
It very much is something that is hard to say. But we also have heard forgiveness is good for the soul. It's not going to change, and I have had to go through this myself. I can point blank, which is the first thing you and I talked about. You were angry for a very long time, a few years you mentioned.
Oh, yeah, that's
But that anger wasn't going to change what the reality of was. And the gentleman who did what he did, because we don't live in these people's lives, that their lives are impacted as well, just this changed our lives. This didn't happen to us, it happened to this individual, but it affected us, just as that person was the direct reason why your son's no longer here. But we don't know what he was going through either. And so that anger actually hold you captive to something that maybe shouldn't be Michael, in memory of Michael. The memories is something that we try to hold on to. You already know with the triggers and stuff when it comes to loss of a loved one, we're coming into the holidays. But the gentleman that had this happen to him, did you at once ever, in your mind, you don't have to say to him directly, but did you ever really forgive him not knowing what he was going under or going through perhaps that day, whether it's what you want to see as his age or whatever was told to you because you didn't know because of the blindness of the anger, but did you forgive him?
I think the only reason that I forgave him at the point that I did was because I found out he had died. I
So
don't
it was
mean to
after the
say-
fact. No, I want you to be honest because this is a reality. This is our lives. I mean, there's nothing that's edited about it.
I never got to meet him, and he wrote a apology note through his attorney, and it wasn't real sincere in my opinion. He said I should feel sorry for him because his wife had died, and that he was a sad old man, and that type of thing. And he was saying that he felt he was apologizing for his part in the incident, like as if Michael had any fault at all, and I didn't like that letter, so I never forgave him with that letter. And then I was looking, I think my attorney, we decided not to sue him in civil court, but I kept looking to see if he was still alive. I don't know what made me look, because of his age probably, and I didn't find anything. And then one time the newspaper online said, if you want to search like 100 other newspapers across the U.S., put the name here. And I did that, and his name popped up, and he had died. And I was actually kind of relieved that he wasn't on the road anymore, because I thought they let him continue driving when he obviously couldn't see a red light. And we had the TV cameras go on the same route the next day at the same time into the sun, and you could see the light changing. So I don't know why he didn't see it. He wasn't supposedly drunk or any other
impairment.
Yeah.
So
other than age.
This could go on to other things, but forgiveness is the biggest thing for ourselves. And I feel that your interpretation of what he wrote wasn't good enough for you because you were looking for something else. But as you know, we all grieve differently.
Yes, we do.
And you had already shared with me that he had already lost his wife. So we don't know. His distraction may have been the remembrance of his wife and how he's by himself. And he said he was an old, lonely old man. We don't know what his life was prior to that. We don't know what was up until that very moment, that he had his own struggles that he was dealing with. And because we want answers, we don't get answers. So sometimes to free ourselves, we have to say, you know what, I'm not going to get the answer I'm wanting. I can't get the action I'm looking for. I have to let that be theirs and not mine. And not that I'm saying you have to forgive him and it wasn't good enough, but it was one of those things that forgiveness is good on the soul. And I want to wrap up real fast, and it's good for living too, but what legacy? I love asking this question because I'm already working on my legacy. What legacy do you want to leave?
Well, I'd like people to say that she helped save lives, because that was my goal, that the reason I get involved with this. And I have had people tell me that they've changed their bad driving behavior after hearing my story. So I really believe that that's the legacy I want to leave, that someone will say, oh, that lady, I remember meeting her and I quit doing this. I quit texting and driving, or I quit something because I heard her story. And I think that would make me happy.
It's a powerful story for sure. We all have a story, right?
We all have a story.
And to give hope is even better. Is there a website or a place that someone can find you? Should they have questions or want to be involved?
Yeah, Red Means Stop is www.redmeanstop.org. And you can contact us through the website. We have a Contact Us page on there. And we would be glad to talk to you. We're looking for a few more board members. And we always could use volunteers.
There's always about volunteers with nonprofits.
Right.
Can never have enough, and they are probably the most valued. I know I appreciate mine.
Yes.
Repeat the information again, just in case someone didn't catch it, to write it down. So
okay, it's www.redmeanstop.org.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for sharing your son and your daughter. And I'm going to assume that she's doing well?
Well, she's had some issues with her traumatic brain injury that's caused her not to be where she wanted to be in life, but she's alive and living in the area, and I still get to see her, and so I'm very blessed.
And not a lot of people ask about the loss of a loved one, how we're doing. How are you doing?
I'm actually quite much better. It seems like this year is the first year in 15 years that I didn't feel like a heavy weight was on my shoulder during August, during his Angelversary month. I felt like people were praying for me. There was some things that I'd gone through an empowerment experience with another coach, and she really helped me see that I'm doing good in the world. And I don't know why, but I really didn't feel as heavy this year, and I think I'm finally over that hump of anger. I don't really have anger.
Good.
I'm actually feeling very blessed and see a lot of I see good things in life. You know, I'm looking out there and I see beautiful things. And sometimes when you're grieving, you don't see
They're
the
blocked.
Flowers anymore. You don't see the sunsets.
And it's easy to tell someone that life is short. We've heard the cliches. We've heard all the things that you are like, if you only knew, I know what that really means.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I know that I do with my daughter and the other mothers that I have met is the memories that we had with our children. Go ahead and share your picture again. Michael. You will never, ever have those taken away from you.
I know.
And so the memory is of your son and the memories you had as a family, however the dynamics were. And he makes me smile just looking at his picture to know that he makes his mama smile, and now you found a purpose in your life to help others. Like you said, the legacy you want to leave is that you helped other people. So I very much thank you for giving me your time. We've talked a few times through other things in the Chandler area, but never got to sit down and actually hear your story. So thank you for sharing your story with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. And through the program, you probably saw my contact information. So if you have any questions or you have a story that you want me to air, I would love it. And then again, Barbara, if you need to get a hold of her, that information was provided as well. And until then, we wish you well.
The preceding program was brought to you by the Holy Spirit Broadcasting Network, HSBN Television.